Wisdom. I'm always praying for wisdom. Scripture tells us that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. So as we work toward understanding godly wisdom today, it would seem we need to start with an understanding of what fearing the Lord means. So according to science and what we know of human anatomy, neurology, the brain, emotions, there's two kinds of fear. Very simply, there is healthy fear and unhealthy fear. We're all afraid of something, aren't we? So before Micheline and I had our precious daughters, McKenna and Sayana, I was a roller coaster freak, a roller coaster nut. We were living in New York City at the time, and we'd travel with friends to Six Flags Great Adventure just over in New Jersey, Busch Gardens, other parks that had the craziest, highest, scariest roller coasters. And I loved them. The scarier, the more horrifying, the better. So one summer, Six Flags Great Adventure in New Jersey just opened a brand new monster coaster called the Nitro. This is called a hyper coaster, and the ride lasted over 3 minutes, boasted speeds upwards of 80 miles an hour, 130 kilometers per hour, right? No shoulder restraints, no sides on the cars. I was hooked. I was all in. So I remember waiting in line with Micheline, and we heard the screams from that initial drop. It was a big, big drop, right? You see, once you're strapped into the coaster, it starts this slow and steady ascent, right? An upward climb of 230 feet, 70 meters. And once you crested the summit, you were held there for a brief moment. And you could see all the way to Philadelphia, which was over an hour away. So as you were hanging there, the angle of the drop is actually so steep that you couldn't see the track underneath you. And while we were waiting in line, all you saw was the steep climb of the coaster, and then the pause, and then the piercing screams of that 215-foot drop, 66 meters. It was practically a free fall. One of the ride attendants was pushing past everyone in the opposite direction, and right by Micheline and me, he had his walkie-talkie out, and he was frantically talking. Yes, sir, that's right, we got another fainter. The people around us all went silent. So I looked at my friend, and we looked at our wives, and both our wives, very wisely, said, okay, we're out, boys. Have fun. Micheline, want to get some ice cream? To which she answered, you know what, that sounds so much better and more safe. I'll admit, in that moment, I hesitated. My heart sped up. The line dwindled as, others quite logically left. Maybe this ride was too stupid. So I released my sweaty, clenched palms, put my hand on my friend's shoulder, took a breath, and with a half-hearted grin said, I'm still in. You in? His face was white, and he looked at me with panicked, glassy eyes and said, yeah, sure. We were so dumb. We waited for the very front row. Can you believe that? And if you're going to do something as idiotic as this, you just might as well go all in. So I remember when our car steadily and slowly climbed and we just came over the top. I was horrified, I'll admit it. Fear like I've never felt. I couldn't see, we were right up front, I couldn't see the track underneath me. So I leaned all the way in the back seat and actually brought my feet up on the car, and I was literally, this is the angle, because it was so steep. And I was just holding on to the seat like, I was practically standing up straight. I wasn't even thinking about how strong that seatbelt is, that little piece of fabric, the only thing holding us in. And I frantically looked over at my friend who was frozen but like vibrating with fear. He couldn't make a sound, but I saw his lips moving. And then I finally figured out what he was saying. Why do I do these things with the Weilers? Why do I do these things with the Weilers? And then my eyes actually started tearing up because in that moment, he was right. I felt horrible. It was my fault. It was my fault we did this. We were in the front row of this torture coaster about to drop to our deaths. He was right. And all I could muster was, God, help us. Look at what I did to us. Oh, God, help us. And suddenly we heard that loud metal clank, release, bam. And I'll be the first to admit, we screamed like two little terrified toddlers. It was a thrilling ride, but then something weird happened. As soon as Micheline and I had McKenna and Sayana, height now absolutely freaked me out. When McKenna was about 5 years old, I took her to a Ferris wheel at a county fair, and I barely got through it. I was as panicked as I was on that stupid thing. She loved it. But as the thing was swimming, I'm like, oh my gosh, McKenna, don't move. She's like, Daddy, it's beautiful up here. Can we get cotton candy? Wow. I was panicking. I just can't do rides like that anymore. It's probably a good thing for my heart rate. So what's the difference then, is my point, between healthy fear and unhealthy